Welcome to Amy Learns to Cook. I'm Eric, and on today's show, I'm going to make my chunky beef stew using the Cosori pressure cooker. It's a multifunctional machine, and we're going to be testing many of its functions making my chunky beef stew. So please join me as I cook my chunky beef stew using the Cosori multifunction pressure cooker. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to salt the beef. Optionally, you can salt at the time that you do the little shake and bake method, but for right now, there's many good reasons for this. So I already have a little bit of meat here. I bought this about a week ago from my club store, but it was too much to use at once. So I used some for something else, and then this stuff I froze. I lifted this out and put it in the refrigerator yesterday, so it thawed out in 24 hours, which is good, right? We don't want to leave it on the counter where it's not safe. And then it's sitting right here, which is good. But I want to get, and I'm using kosher salt here. I'm just going to use some pinches here to liberally coat it. The goal of my salting this, besides flavor, is to help draw out some of the moisture, but we're doing this early enough so that way it has a chance for the moisture to go back in. So it's kind of like a dry brine. And I'm going to go and get some more meat on here. If you salt right before you cook, you run the risk of the salt might draw the moisture out and not give enough time to go back in, and that can result in your meat being dry. People who brine a lot should know the difference that sometimes you brine, right, lean cuts of meats, but beef you typically are going to salt. Now this is chuck, and it has a good amount of marbling and stuff, which is good, right, for flavor purposes and moisture and stuff. When I'm doing a beef stew, I don't want lean meat, like a round or something, because it's just going to be dry and it's not really going to have as much flavor. So this fixes a lot of problems when people make beef stew and they say it's bland. Well, if you're not happy with it anymore and you want to do it on your own, then this is one of the things you can do. So today I'm going to show you lots of things to help make your beef stew tasty. And like I said, it's just kosher salt. I'm not using table salt because table salt, I guess granules or whatever you want to call it, the grains are way too fine, and it's too easy to oversalt your meat. Plus, I like the way kosher slowly dissolves and stuff. We just basically salt this pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the fridge for a couple of hours so it can work its magic. So first of all, I want to thank Cosori for sending us this pressure cooker to do our test and review. We really appreciate that. And we have had a little chance to play with it, and I think it works great. And we want to share some of our experiences with you. So during the test and review, we're going to point out some of the functions that we've tested on this thing. Just to do a little quick on this, it is a multifunction. If you look at this menu thing here, we're just going to go ahead and hit the little menu button, for example. It defaults to program 1, which is for meats. If you hit the little plus button, you can go ahead and cycle through the menu to pick what you want. And then it'll pick the ideal temperature and a time to cook what it is you're trying to cook. Whether you're doing slow cooking, or you want to cook vegetables or meats, or do saute. And right now it's trying to cook something there. But also with pressure cooking, you can go ahead and we'll cancel out that. Part of the recipe that I'm going to be doing today is I want to be able to cook my beef until it's done, but I don't want mushy vegetables. So we're going to split the cooking time into a unique mathematical format where the meat will be mostly cooked, and then we turn it off really quick, put in the vegetables that we're going to be eating, and then we're going to go ahead and finish it off, which will finish the cooking of the meat. And then the vegetables will be cooked just right, where the carrots won't be mushy. They'll have a little crunch to them. The potatoes will come out really nice, and it'll be a really enjoyable dish. And then of course at the end we'll put some peas in because they don't need hardly any cooking time at all. So let's get started. So we also did an unboxing video that has some information on this, and if you'd like to see that, we'll put a link at the bottom in the description so you can see that video. And also Cosori is sponsoring a giveaway where we'll give away one of these units, and we'll provide a link down to that video as well. So now we kind of get to do the fun part, right? Like start this thing. So what I have here is 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour, but because I'm using 3 pounds of beef, it's a good match. If you're only going to do 2 pounds of beef or 1.5 pounds, then reduce the flour down to about 1/4 cup, please, and then that'll work out fine. So we're going to put in 2 teaspoons of paprika, 1/2 teaspoon of some black pepper, ground black pepper, and then 1 teaspoon each of some granulated garlic and granulated onion. And then we're gonna give this a little stir, just so it's kind of incorporated, yay. And then we have a gallon Ziploc bag here, so we're just gonna go ahead and throw it in there, right? Yeah. Get every little bit in there. All right. I suppose we could give it a little shake. Yeehaw! All right. So at this point, all we have to do is throw it in here. If you don't salt it ahead of time, like what I did, then you'll want to put some salt in the bag itself, and you might want to go easy, you know, maybe a teaspoon or so in there, and along with the other ingredients we have. And all right, now that we have all the meat in there, we're going to go ahead and just do a little shaking on this. So the goal is just to shake it for a little bit, make sure pieces are generally coated, because this is what's going to help us when we go to brown the meat. All right, now that we've got the meat ready, we want to go ahead and turn this baby on so we can warm them up. Let's hit the menu button, and we're going to go with saute, which is like 5, I believe. Here we are. I'm going to take the lid off. So there's this little music. All right, so now we're going to put like a tablespoon of some oil in here. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and get some meat in here. We're going to end up cooking this in batches. If you're only doing a small recipe, like 1 pound or something, you might get it all in one. I don't recommend crowding the meat. We want to make sure that the things get browned properly. And here we go. Just want to break them up into individual pieces there. And one thing you might notice is that the little flavored flour, if you want to call it that I put on, is actually kind of light. You don't want so much flour that is just flying everywhere, because that can actually dilute the flavor a little bit if you have too much of that going on. So having a little bit is good, and you only need a little just to get the browning going and stuff. So I think we're good with that. Let's go ahead and get a few more pieces in here. If you put too much meat at once, you run the risk of it steaming, and I mean, the meat will tend to cook a little bit, but not really brown the way we want it. So the goal here is to just cook it like this for maybe a couple of minutes on each side, and then we'll flip the batch out and we'll do another batch. Now that's cooking sounds. Yeehaw! All right, this batch is ready, so we're gonna go ahead and take it out. Our goal is not to cook the meat, we're just trying to brown it, get a little flavor. And that's one of the most important things you can do to have tasty beef stew, is to add flavor in different layers, and this is one of them. And as you can see, the pan is getting quite tasty down there. When we're all done, we're gonna deglaze that, and that's gonna be mucho flavor right there. So we're gonna go ahead and brown up the remainder of the beef, and then we'll be back. All right, now that the meat is all browned off, we're gonna go ahead and start getting some of the vegetables sauteed a little bit. Get a little flavor going there, right? So right here, I got 1 large yellow onion. It's gonna go in here until he gets a little happy. Just to let you know, unless you guys cheat and look up the directions before you actually watch this video here, we're going with 3 pounds of beef, 2 pounds of potatoes, 1 pound of carrots that, you know, you can either take like maybe 4 carrots and slice them up, or just get a pound of like babies like this and just throw them in. We're gonna do some of the vegetables in a weird way here. These are the ones that we're gonna definitely be eating. These are the ones that we're gonna be cooking in the pressure cooker for maybe 6 minutes or so. That way when they come out, they're not falling apart. But we are doing an optional, this is up to you or not, but we're gonna do some optional veggies that are gonna add flavor, but because they're gonna be spent, you really don't wanna eat them because they're gonna be mushy. We're gonna take an additional onion that I've cut in half here. We're gonna saute him really quick, just get a little brown on him. And then we're just gonna go ahead and throw in some carrots and some celery. And we're gonna let that cook in the pressure cooker. And we'll pull that out at the end of part 1 of the cooking. So that just gives you a little bit of what to expect here. All right, this has been sauteing now for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 minutes or so. So we're gonna go ahead and get the onions out. All right, let's go ahead and get some carrots in there. So these are going to be what I call the eaten carrots, just like these are the eaten onions. Get a little shot there. See how beautiful those onions are right there? Yum. So those are going to go into the final pot, I suppose, where the vegetables cook that we eat, where some of the vegetables are just in there to flavor the broth, so to speak. They're called sacrificial vegetables. And these carrots, we're just going to throw them in there just for literally a couple of minutes. We're not really trying to cook them all the way through or do anything crazy. All right, we're taking the carrots out. See how beautiful those are? Yeah. And now we're going to go ahead and throw in these onions for just a few seconds here. Just get a little brown on those guys. And then we'll be ready to have more fun. All right, so those guys are doing pretty good. Yeah, they're starting to get a little caramel, so I'm gonna flip them for a moment here. So part of what makes this broth special is it's gonna be half wine and half beef broth. And for a red wine, you want something that's a little robust that can hold up to the cooking, whether it's a Burgundy or in this case, a Pinot Noir. So I have Barefoot today, which is a pretty good brand and it's obviously budget friendly. So we're gonna use that, part of it, to deglaze. Yeah, let's get this guy going. Yay. And ultimately we're going to go with 2 cups of wine, but just to do the deglazing part, I'm just going to put a cup in there. If you were using a large pan or something that's wider, then you could use more wine. I'm just going to set these guys there. But since this pan is a little narrow, if you use more in a cup, you're going to lose a little of your ability to see how the deglazing is going. And in case you haven't done deglazing before, it's really simple. You just have to have a hot liquid such as wine, or you can use broth as well. The wine does a super job. So as soon as it comes up to a boiling, it'll really attack these bits and it'll make the pan clean, and it gives us wonderful flavor for the broth. Okay, I just want to show you real quick that after a couple of minutes, the wine came up to a really nice temperature, started attacking the bits, and you can kind of see that the pan is coming really clean. So that's going to all incorporate with the broth we have. So next we're going to do is we're going to put together the broth and get our ingredients in there. All right, now for the fun part. We're ready to assemble the stew. So we currently have a little bit of wine with the deglazed brown bits from the previous browning of the meat and the vegetables. So now we're going to add the rest of the broth. And the one thing I just want to briefly say is the goal is to have 4 cups of broth because I like to make a lot of gravy. If you're only going to go with, say, 2 pounds of stew meat, then maybe 2 cups of broth is okay, or 3 cups. But I'm going with a lot of meat, and I'm going to thicken this at the end, and I'll show you, and it'll be really great. So I already have roughly a cup of in there. The goal is to have hopefully 4 cups finished in there. In other words, I just deglazed. It reduced the wine a lot because it boiled and steamed a lot, so I lost some wine. So I basically added a little bit more in there, and I need to add about a cup more to bring it to its little 2 cup. The goal is to have half and half. If you don't drink or want any alcohol in your cooking, then use maybe a cup of balsamic vinegar as a substitute, and I'm sure it'll be tasty enough. You just want a little bit of vinegar or a little acid to help brighten things. This is 2 cups of beef broth I used using bitter and bouillon. All right, so we have that. Let's go ahead and add the meat first, and then I'll add the vegetables. And well, actually, let's add the rest of the ingredients other than the meat and vegetables. We have 3 cloves of garlic that are minced. Amy, help me with that. If I get them all out, I'm just going to rinse it out. I'm a pig, and I do it that way, right? We have 1 tablespoon of Worcester sauce that goes in. We have a teaspoon of fresh thyme. If you don't have fresh thyme, then dried is fine. And then we have a tablespoon and a half of tomato paste. Like I said, this is all about adding flavor and different layers, right? And let's go ahead and just give it a quick stir. Yay. And like I said, one of my main concerns is salt. I'm not really worried about this reducing and concentrating salt so much as if you were using a pot and steaming it for hours. But there's enough sodium in this from the broth, and then the meat had a little bit of salt at the beginning, that I think it'll hold up okay, and you can go ahead and season at the end. But the meat did need a little bit of salt to kind of get it going. So we're just adding the 3 pounds of meat I have, and then any juices that collected while it was sitting on the plate. And that just looks all yummy, right? Get that all in there. Okay. And we're going to add 3 bay leaves. Put those in there. And like I said, these are going to be sacrificial vegetables. We're going to fish these out after step 1 of this cooking process. So I just have the 1 onion there. And this is 4 carrots that are large. I just basically sliced them lengthwise. And then I also have 4 stalks of celery that I just cut in half. And like I said, we're going to fish all those out after the first part of the cooking. And we are ready to lock this down and get the cooking going. So now we got that. They have 2 positions on it. This one shows a bunch of steam. It's like a cloud. And then this one here is a picture of just some wavy lines. This is the venting. So when we get ready to release it, we'll put it into the venting position. But to get it started, we need to put it into the sealed position. And that's what we're going to focus on. Also, notice that the little red or purple thing right here is in the down position. As steam builds, it'll pop up. And then shortly after that, we'll get a countdown on this guy. Likewise, when we get ready to unlock this and we move it to the venting position using something like this to protect yourself, this guy will be popped up, and after a minute or 2, he'll drop down, and then we can go ahead and open this up. It has interlocks to keep you from doing it. So for right now, let's go to the sealed position. So for this part of the cooking, we're going to do this for about 23 minutes. So we're going to hit the, so he's on high. So we're going to hit cooking time. Now we can hit minus, and I'm going to knock him down to 23. And then he's good. And then he's going to flash, and in a second he'll have some little flashing stuff, and he'll turn on, and at some point it'll come up to pressure, and then he'll start counting down, and then it'll eventually signal at the end, and we'll show you all that. So as you can see, we're down to 1 minute left on this, so it should make a little song and dance shortly here. And there it is. So now it's counted down. So now we're going to go ahead and release. So we're going to go ahead and vent. And as you can see, I'm using protective gloves here. And there we go. Yay! All right, so now you can see the pressure indicator dropped. So now it's going to be safe to open this up. So now you can see that we have quite a bit of stuff in there that we're going to be fishing out here. So you can see carrots or the carrots, celery's a little limp there. Just gonna go ahead and get those guys out. The carrots basically are fall apart. Oops, got the last bay leaf, yay! Carrots are kind of breaking. Gotta leave the meat in there. Got some, oh no, onion that fell apart. This onion is basically, it gave up whatever it had in its life. It's just falling apart there. So I think that is all we had. So now we get to put in the, oops, well, let's drain that stuff back in, right? Because that's good stuff. All right. So now we get to put in the eating vegetables. So we have the carrots and the chopped onions from earlier, right? Get that in there. Stir that up to make a little room because we have a bunch of potatoes going to go in. So this is about 8 red potatoes. In fact, it's quicker if I just, I don't know, reach in there myself, right? So I quartered 8 for a total of about 2.5 pounds. So we got about everything we need in there. So the meat, all the lovely gravy is doing great. And now we have potatoes and onions and carrots. We'll add peas much later. So let's go ahead and get the lid back on here. It cools off too much. So let's go ahead and we'll put this guy over here to the sealing position. And he's been keeping warm, which is nice. We're going to hit cancel real quick. We're going to hit manual. And we only want this for 6 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and hit cooking time. And we hit minus. Got to 6. Keep going here. So this is going to cook for, well, it's going to reheat, pressurize, and it's going to cook for 6 minutes, which is enough to get the vegetables done, and it's enough to finish off the beef. So we'll be back in a moment. All right, the timer just went off. So let's go ahead and vent this so we can enjoy, right? So, boink. All right. So that should relieve pressure, and then that little guy should drop down in the next minute or so. It's got just a little bit of steam left. It's like, ah, there it goes. All right, so now we can open this up. Ooh. How's that look? We're going to go ahead and we're going to quickly cancel this. We're going to go ahead and put this on saute because we need to reheat it real quick. We got a little bit of a slurry to thickness, and we also need to get some peas going. And let's go ahead and hit menu, bump it up to 5, and then I'll get going. So once this gets back to a quick little simmer type thing, we'll go ahead and we'll get some slurry going in there. That'll help thicken a little bit, and then we'll throw the peas, and it only needs a couple of minutes. All right, we have a slurry here of maybe a 1/4 cup of broth and about 3 to 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, and using cold broth, not hot. And then I also threw a little bit of salt and pepper to help with a little seasoning. The biggest thing with this was I wanted to season the taste. I didn't want to cook in a ton of salt. The stuff should start thickening because cornstarch likes it to boil before it kicks in. All right, looks like the stuff's thickening up. Now we're gonna cool it for a moment by putting in some frozen peas. So we got a pound of frozen peas here. And this stuff, we'll get that stirred in there. These little guys only need a couple of minutes to warm up. If we would have added these earlier, they would have been so mushified. You'd be like, I don't know, mad at me? So, I don't know. How's that looking, Boo Boo? Does that look pretty good? All right, so the peas did cool us down. So we still got it on saute, so it is applying heat. And that of course will help keep everything happy. And then after that, we will be taking a sample, right? So first I want to thank Cosori for sending us this fine cooking utensil here. It's a multi-function pressure cooker, slow cooker, it sautés, it can cook meat, vegetables, all kinds of stuff. We tested just 2 of its functions today, and it passed with flying colors. The recipe we did was definitely not the simplest one out there. You can just throw recipe ingredients together and set it on low and let it cook all day, come home and it's all ready for you. Or you can do it a little more like we do, and it just is going to be wonderful. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a sample of this here. Now, I'm expecting this thing to have tender meat. I will stab it. Stab. All right. Still hot temperature. Meat is falling apart in my mouth. It's not very chewy at all. And it's gone. The carrot got some crunch to it. And it's gone. And the potato here, it's big, it's going to burn my mouth, I know it will. Not bad though. Got that down. The skin definitely held it together. I'd be afraid if I used russets, it'd probably fall apart. Or maybe if I would have skinned these and then throw it in there, it probably would have fallen apart. Would have probably thickened the gravy or the broth on its own. But I wanted some vegetables that I could figure out what they really were. And of course, the tiniest in here is we have a little bit of, if you can see it in there, I'm dripping everywhere. We have a pea and a little bit of onion. And the pea, of course, is holding up because he went in at the very end. Amy told me to get a spoon. I said, why? She goes, you want to eat the broth, don't you? I go, that's what this guy's for. So, if you're going to eat this with, you know, some crusty bread, that might be really recommended. So this is garlic Texas toast. It's French bread, so it's soft, but it's tasty. So The biggest problem with the beef stew is the flavoring. Everybody has different taste buds, so you can't make everybody happy. I like to start with it being undersalted, then that way you can add salt as you go, and then you can be happy with it. If you put a ton at the beginning, you can't undo it. So in this case, we add a little bit of salt to the meat, let it sit for an hour or two. That helps a little bit with flavoring the meat itself. The broth has a lot of salt just because it does. If you're going to use a homemade broth, like a stock, it likely has no salt unless you add some to it. When I got ready to thicken the broth, I added cornstarch to some beef broth, but and made a slurry. But at that same time, I added about a teaspoon of table salt and a teaspoon of black pepper. So that was kind of concentrated, but then it had a chance to disperse among all this liquid here, which I've got about a quart in there. So that's a lot, but I wanted a lot. Now, if you only make half of that by doing, you know, a little bit of broth and a little bit of wine or a little bit of vinegar, you can do that too. But you can take the excess in this and you can put it over rice or anything else. Because I've already got starch with all these potatoes, I didn't want to do that for this video. But this would be something you can do. Believe me, anytime that we make a recipe that's got a broth and it turns into like a gravy or something, cook extra, okay? So I just want to thank Cosori for providing us this electric pressure cooker so we could do the review. If you want to learn any more information about the Cosori, we'll put a product link in our description. We also did an unboxing recently. If you want to check that out, we'll have a link to that video. And we're also doing a giveaway. Cosori sponsoring a giveaway of one of these. So if you want to enter that or you're interested in it, we'll have a link to that as well. If you like this video, subscribe below, give us a thumbs up and a like, and visit our website at www.amylearnstocook.com, and we're on Pinterest and Twitter at Amy Learns to Cook. Cheers. Dave.
Go! Cut!
That's not me. That's not me. This is somebody else. This is Amy drinking this, not me.
Take 3. Yay!
Do I have to edit this out?